Hi, I'm Alexandra Billings. Welcome to the Sarah O'Connor Show.
Welcome to the Sarah O'Connor Show.
Alexandra Billings, welcome to the Sarah O'Connor Show. You're one of my favourite people on the entire planet. How are you today?
I am on the entire planet?
Yeah, I've checked
Is that
everyone.
true?
Mm-hmm.
That's a lot of that's a lot of people.
Yeah.
I appreciate that. I'm in good company.
Your dad was a musical director and teacher, and your first role, I believe, was in The King and I at the age of 7. Is acting something that you always aspire to do?
It was. Yeah. When I was little, my dad said, because I said, I want to be, an actor. And my dad said, well, okay, you can do that if you learn how to do other things. So he always said, you have to sweep the stage, you have to take tickets, you have to learn how the lights work, you have to build a set, which was hilarious, by the way. You don't ever want me doing that, but just a side note, you don't ever want me to build anything, let alone a set. So I did all that stuff to the best of my ability. And then finally he said, okay, I'll give you some tiny little roles in some of the things that he did. And then, so yes, it's always been true. But what I learned when I was really young is that art doesn't happen by itself. Art is a group effort and it's about community. And that was really important for me to learn.
Very true. Now, you met your wife at a drama club in high school in 1976 and starred in 12th Night together. And you've been together ever since.
I can't believe how much you know.
Right?
That's crazy.
I know. I do all my research and everything. I remember years ago you posted a video of you were going to get your marriage license in California, and you got there and then you had to go and get married, and you had 3 hours to do it.
Yeah. I can't believe you remember that. My God. Yes, you can find that on the YouTube. That's hilarious. Yeah, that was the strangest day. Because, my wife and I are procrastinators. So we wait to the last minute to do anything. And we did. We waited to the last day of the last hours of this thing to be legalized. It was so dumb. I mean, do you remember that? Do you remember, like, first it's legal, now it's not? Then what the? It was insane. I mean, it was such a lesson in the absurdity of the government trying to overreach into your bedrooms or your love life. It was just ridiculous. And I think people finally figured that out. People were like, this is dumb. Even if they hated the idea, people sort of said, this is a stupid conversation. I just don't want to have it anymore. But yeah, we waited till the very last day. And then I, of course, because I film everything, I filmed the whole day, and it was a comedy of errors is what it was. And we finally got married by a woman, a reverend who went, my glasses are so foggy, who went by the name of Starbuck and who reeked of marijuana.
But you managed to do it in time.
We did, just in time. We got saved by Jeff Perry of the Steppenwolf Theater, who I've known for 100 years. And he actually found us. You can see this all on my YouTube channel, which I don't really keep up very well anymore, but he literally went through a phone book, like a phone book, and found a church, because we didn't know what the hell. So he found a church called the Little Red Church. Is that right? Oh my God. The Little Red Church in West Hollywood. And it was the only one open because everybody was getting married. And we got there, we got to the license plate, I think at 4:30, and it closed at 5 or something.
So you did an autobiographical show called She and Me. When things open up again, is there a chance that you may take that show on the road again, or have you by any chance recorded it so that people could watch it in the future?
What a great question. I don't know if we'll take it on the road. We might. That's a good idea. We're actually, the director, Joanne Gordon, who is also my collaborator and what I call my work wife, because that's what she is. I have a wife and I have a work wife, and they both really like each other. And she and I have been talking about doing just that thing. We did record it. So it is recorded, and it's actually a really good recording. So we have been talking, we just can't get or it's me. She's actually not the problem, it's me. I have to get myself together so that I can put it online and people can see it. So I just have to do that. but I think we're going to take pieces of that show, songs, and put together an act to eventually take to Carnegie Hall. Yeah, so that's actually in the forefront of my brain right now. I'd rather do that than go on tour, I think.
Sure. And so you've been in loads of productions over the years, Xena Live, Gypsy, played Madame Morrible in Wicked. Looking back, which has been your favorite role to be a part of?
My favorite role, do you know the role that came into my head?
No.
Was 150 years ago when I played Cruella de Vil in a kids production of 101 Dalmatians live on stage.
Amazing.
It was so fun. It was, there was a moment, I had that big, black and white wig.
Yeah.
And I would come out and all the kids would boo. I love doing kids shows. I've done kids shows my whole life. And all the kids would boo and hiss. It was great. And there were I had little stuffed dogs, so I could do whatever I wanted. I'd throw them up in the air, or I'd hit the kids with them. It was great. Or I'd steal some of the women's purses in the audience and put a dog in it. It was super fun. It was so much fun. And the director let me do anything I wanted to do, which is dangerous. You want to be careful. But anyway, there was one point in the show where I do this I developed this Cruella laugh, which I can't really do anymore, but this big laugh. And one night I'm standing in the aisle. I did a lot of things like within the kids because they loved it when I got really close. They would boo and hiss and throw things at me. It was great. So I would stand in the aisle and I would hold this dog and I'd pet it and I'd throw my head back and I'd laugh this big laugh and then I'd run up the stairs. It was a great exit. So one matinee, this is why it's my favorite role. So one matinee, I have the dog and it's noon and I'm exhausted and I do this big laugh and I throw my head back and my wig goes on hits the floor and the kids screamed with laughter. I mean, I haven't heard that kind of laughter, I think, ever. And the director, and I had, the wig cap and the whole, it was hilarious. So I did this thing and kind of put it on my head and ran up the stairs. And at the end, it was the biggest laugh I think I've ever gotten in any show. And after the show, I was like, oh, I need to do that again. Oh God, I need to do that again. But I'm like, the director's never going to let me. He's never going to let me. She is never going to let me do that. Dorothy Milne directed that. And Dorothy came back after the show and she said, listen, I want to talk about what happened. And I'm like, oh my God, I'm fired. So I said, well, it was an accident and it doesn't end. She said, if that doesn't happen every single night, you're fired. I was like, I'm in heaven. That's why it's my favorite role.
I love that story. So
I got to do it every night.
It's amazing. So you started in Romy and Michele in the beginning where you played the first trans person playing a trans character. How did that come about? Because it was quite inclusive for back in 2005, I think it was.
Back in the day, yeah, it was a while ago now. Actually, we found this out accidentally. I'm the second trans person to play a trans character on television because the first, and now I'm not going to remember her name. I'm a terrible person. She's not acting anymore. She did one TV show and it was a sci-fi show. Yeah. And I can't remember her name. Oh, maybe she'll see this and she'll remind me. And I can't remember the name of the show. The only reason we found out is because the publicity was going out like Alexandra Billings is the first blah, blah to play a blah, blah. And she contacted my manager and she went, excuse me. She's actually the second. So I'm actually the second. That's the second time that was been done. But numbers. So anyway, I just wanted to give her props, even though I can't remember her name. Oh my God, I'm going straight to hell. Transgender hell. So I'm sorry, I keep taking off my glasses, but they keep fogging up. I was living in Chicago, and I had a theatrical career for many, many years. Yeah. So I worked in the theater for a long, long time. And I worked at the Steppenwolf, I worked at the Goodman, I worked at big mainstream theaters, and I was really happy. And then I got bored. I was sort of like doing the same thing over and over again. And I only played one trans character in my whole theatrical career, just one. I didn't play a lot of, that were written as trans characters. Of course, they were all trans because I'm trans, but that were written as trans characters. Right. And so I was sort of done. I was like, I need to do something else. So this casting director, whose name is Claire Simon, who's still a very good friend of mine, called me and said, I have a gig for you. And I went, what is it? And she said, well, it's a TV movie. And I said, I'm not doing it. I'm not doing it because every time I audition for something, I never get it. And I have to buy a costume like a hooker and go down with the, you know, in the freezing cold in the winter. I'm not doing it. And she said, no, Alex, listen to me. You're going to get this one. I'm like, no, piss off. No. So she bugged me for like God bless her, for like 2 weeks, almost every day. Listen, I think you need to click. Listen, it's Claire. Can you click? I have a banana. Click. Like, finally, I got so tired of her calling me, and she's so kind and so sweet. I said, all right, fine. I'll come down and I'll audition, but piss off. So when I went down, I didn't care. This is terrible. To all my students who are watching this, don't do as I do. But I just didn't care because I really didn't think I was going to get it. So I had nothing to lose. That's what I mean by I didn't care. I had nothing to lose. Nothing was at stake. So I went down, put on a blonde wig, found a Southern accent somewhere in my Sally Field realm of accents and did it, came back. And 2 days later, they called and they said, we want you to do this thing. And I went, huh? They said, yeah, we're going to fly you first class down to LA. This is when I lived in Chicago. Put you up. You're going to film for 2 weeks. You have a couple of scenes with Paula Abdul. That's a whole other story, by the way. And then here's $1 million. I mean, it wasn't $1 million. I don't remember. At the time, it seemed like $1 million. Yeah. And so I filmed. It's the first thing I ever did too, may I just say. I had never filmed anything. So I didn't know what a mark was or what like they would say, back to one. And I would go, there's more than one what? What's happening? Or they would say, Alex, you really need to hit your mark. And I would go, who's Mark? I don't know who that is. You're gonna have to point Mark out to me. So I had zero idea. I had to literally learn as I was on set. And you know who was my greatest teacher on set? Katherine Heigl.
Oh, really?
She was amazing to me. She would say, Alex, there's your mark. That's what it looks like. Really quietly, so she never embarrassed me. Or she would say, you're going to have to do that again, so make sure you do it exactly the same way so they can have continuity. I didn't know. When you come in, make sure you come in the exact same way through that door. She helped me through the entire filming. And that was like 3 weeks. She was extraordinary. So this is what I'm talking about. Art is community.
You released an album in the year 2000, Being Alive, and follow up 3 years later, the story goes on. Have you considered releasing any more music? You've got such a beautiful voice and I'd love to hear it. Oh,
well, bless your heart. Thank you. I don't know that. Look, that's a bunny, by the way.
I love it.
I don't know why I pointed that out. And there's a butterfly. I appreciate that. I actually do not think I have a beautiful voice, but I appreciate that. That's very, very kind of you. I like to sing. I've always liked to sing. I consider myself a loud singer, not necessarily a good singer.
I can relate to that.
Okay. Yeah. You can hear me, is what I'm saying.
In myself.
We're loud people. Yeah. We take up an enormous amount of space.
I do. The longer lockdown goes on, I'm taking up even more.
That's right. I am not a studio singer, and that's an art, which I didn't know at the time. That like people like Madonna or Britney Spears, when you go, they're not really. No, they are really. And I'm not a big Madonna fan, but what she does in the studio is remarkable because nobody can do that but her. It's the same with Britney. It's the same of any recording artist. It's a whole other skill, and I just don't have it. So I didn't have a very good time. That's why the second album is live, but it didn't sound very good because it was live. And at the time, we didn't have the right kind of things. So I don't know, I might record, I don't know, every time I think about having to record something, I just go, or I think I could be home watching Lucy. Why do I want to put myself through this? So maybe if millions of people go, we have to have another album from Alexandra Billings, then I'll think about it.
Well, I'm sure after this interview, they'll all be doing that very thing.
You think? Okay.
And then someone
Check.
with that exact name will release an album.
Yeah. That would be genius, wouldn't it?
Right.
That would be brilliant. I think it's a really good idea. Yeah.
So you starred in Transparent as Davina, of course, in 24 episodes. Is it true that you got the job because Jerry Soloway's sister, Faith, contacted you on Facebook?
Yes. Yeah. And also, the Soloways and I have known each other since like 1926.
Yeah.
Back in the day in Chicago, late night Chicago theater was it. And by late night, I mean like shows that started at 11 p.m.
Mm.
And it was, there was the Factory Theater, there was the Annoyance Theater, which is where the Soloways were. And then there was Torso Theater, which is where I was. And there were other, Second City had a late night show, and there were a lot of late night shows going on. I don't know if that's true anymore, but back in the day, that's what was going on. And the Soloways were involved in a show called Co-ed Prison Sluts.
Of course.
Well, and I was in a show called Cannibal Cheerleaders on Crack.
Love it.
Thank you. And they both played at kind of the same time. One started a little earlier. I can't really remember which. And one day, one of the actresses in Co-ed Prison Sluts had to go somewhere, went on vacation or something. And Mick Napier, who runs the Annoyance Theater, who's a very good friend of mine, called me and said, Alex, can you step into this role? And I said, Mick, I can't. I'm down the streets doing cheerleaders. I said, we're doing a show at the same time. And he said, however, this character dies in Act 2. So you could be here for Act 1, die, get in a cab, and still make your curtain for Cannibal Cheerleaders. I was like, well, that's brilliant. I was on an immense amount of cocaine at the time. Right. So I was like, that's perfect. So that's what I did. I did that. It was supposed to be for a week, and I think it ended up for like 6 weeks or something. But that's how we met. And that was back in 1980. I don't even remember, or 19 something, 90, I don't remember. And then 100 years later, out of the blue, Faith messages me on Facebook and says, listen, our parent is transitioning and we don't know what to do. They're in their 70s and you're the only person that we could think of that we don't know what to do. So we helped each other. I try, not every trans experience is the same. So I didn't say, well, this is what's going to happen. I'm like, because I have no idea what's going to happen.
Right.
But, we talked to each other. And then a couple of months later, Faith goes, oh, I think we're going to turn this into a TV show. And I said, that doesn't surprise me. And they said, would you like to be involved? And I went, sure, you're the Soloways, of course. You're brilliant. I know how brilliant you are. Absolutely. So a couple of months later, they're like, okay, we're having auditions. And I was like, wow, this is really happening. All right. I said, well, where are you guys going to do this? Now, remember, this was 10-ish years ago. Yeah. Maybe longer. Before we even started filming, probably about 10 years ago, maybe longer. And I said, where are you going to do this? And they said, we're going to do, Amazon is producing it. I said, the place that sells books? What are you talking about? But I thought, well, it's the Soloways and they're completely insane and brilliant. So I know it's going to be fun to do, even if nobody sees it. And that's how we went into this show, thinking nobody's going to watch this because it's on the place that sells books. So nobody's going to see it. So we might as well just do whatever the hell we want. And we did.
You really did. And speaking of which, it's the only show, I think, in history that's had a musical finale. And I really do believe that every show should end that way. How much fun was that for you to do?
I think every show should end that way, too. Right? I think you're right. Yeah. That was probably one of the most joyous experiences of my life. And I mean that. We had gone through such a terrible time with Jeffrey Tambor and his abhorrent behavior that we really needed a healing. And Shakina, who played the new Mora, for lack of a better term, and everyone they brought back, Trace and all those people are still, I'm very, very close to. Shakina and Our Lady J, who was the head writer, Trace, Amy Landecker, Catherine Hahn, that awful Duplass guy, whatever his name was. Ugh, boy, he's terrible. And so all of those, Judith Light is a guide of mine. So the great thing is all of us got to get together, along with Joey at the helm and Faith writing all that gorgeous music, and be the part of the story that we always wanted to be, without detours, without interruptions, without being sidelined by a white cis guy who had a penchant for power. So that musical that you see, whether you like it or you don't, the joy that you see in that musical is, there's no acting. That's true.
And I think that really come across in that episode as well. And it was a beautiful way to end it and bring closure to all those characters as well.
I feel like, you know, can I just say that these people, the characters in Transparent, that we lived with for so long, were part of a revolution. And this goes back to saying whether Jeffrey behaved abominably or he didn't. I mean, he did. What I'm saying is sometimes he didn't and sometimes he did. But the things that people say that he did do. I want to be really clear. He did do them. And he knows he did do them. However, Maura, I miss Maura. Like, I miss her. The character he created was extremely important and revolutionary. It changed the face of television. I mean, thank God for Pose, but it changed the face of television. Television has never seen a character like that before, ever. And it never will again. There will never be the first, even though it was played by a cis man, which was unfortunate, but necessary at the time. That character is extraordinary. So if any kind of legacy is left behind from his behavior, it'll be the creation of that trans woman that lives with all of us, probably.
Have you got any messages for the community and why it's important to be visible?
Why is it important to be visible? Why is it important to be visible? Well, you know, that's a really good question. You know why it's a good question? Because not everybody is visible and not everybody's able to be visible. I think what's important, because I know what you're asking, I think what's important is that we're honest. That's what I think is important. Because I used to be very much like, get out and show yourself, or I'm going to come and punch your face in. Like, I was very militant about showing who you are, but that was me trying to get everybody to, you know, behave like me. And now I really feel like, because there's these people with these red hats and their mania, it's just so frightening. And it's so odd. And it's a real sickness in our country. Luckily, they wear those hats so that we can spot them a mile away, right? Because they're doing one of two things. They're either Trumpers or they're fishing. One or two things are true. So stay away from them at all costs anyway. So for me, it's not about being in hiding. It's not about assimilation, and it's not about stealth. However, if any of those things are true because you feel unsafe, I say do what you need to do to keep yourself safe. Just make sure in your life somewhere you carve out a space. I don't care if it's in the corner of your bedroom, where you are honest, truthful, forthright, and safe. That for me is visibility. But it's not about being here on this space machine. It's not about carrying a flag. It's not about being in a parade. It's not even about coming out. Sometimes people cannot do that. As long as you have a space in your life somewhere that you created, that is for you, that will allow the divine in. And that, as you stand up in it, is grace.
I grew up in the 1980s and I loved the TV show Roseanne and continue to. And now, of course, there's The Connors and you play Robin, the supervisor of Wellman Plastics. How did that come about? Can you tell me? And were you always a fan of the show?
I was not. Isn't that terrible?
Really?
I know. I'm sorry. Please please keep being my friend. I wasn't. I was not. I don't know why I didn't watch it. I have no excuse. I didn't watch it. So I didn't watch it, but I knew it was iconic. That I knew because it had been around for 100 years.
Yeah.
So, in answer to the second part of your question, I really have no idea how it happened. It's one of those things that, you just like sitting at home and, oh, ring, hello, would you like to do the Connors? All right. Like, it's like, okay. And it was supposed to be for 2 episodes. It was a guest spot for 2 episodes. So I was like, great. And I went there and all of us really got along, because that doesn't always happen, especially when you're a guest star. You pop in, to a thing that's already going. So you have to kind of jump in and do the thing, and then you're gone. You never see them again, never see these people or the story. And for some reason, this thing that was going, I really understood, which was strange considering, maybe because I hadn't never seen it before. That was probably what helped, because I didn't have any preconceived ideas. I went in just going, I'm just going to be this, I'm going to figure out how to do this and tell this story. And 2 episodes turned into 3, and 3 turned into 4, and 4 turned into 6. So it just happened. The writers wrote so beautifully this trans character that is a human being, flawed, certainly, which is really fun to play, but a human being who happens to be transgender.
Right.
That's what I think is revolutionary.
And that's the great thing about it too, because even though the character happens to be trans, it's not even your main storyline, and it comes up, midway through the episodes, and it's really respectfully discussed. And then, you go back to being the supervisor, and that's who you are, and that's your relationship with the characters.
Yeah, it's so great. I'm so glad you said that, because when I spoke to the writers, I said, we can do this and that. And they said, I don't know that Robin's ever going to talk about it again. And it was so great because the people around Robin didn't have that usual, like reaction to, when a trans character discloses, by the way, I'm trans, and everybody goes, holy God, or whatever it is that they do. That didn't happen. Literally, Becky just went, plot twist. And that was it. Like that was the discovery. It's genius. It's brilliant. And that's the writing, though.
I love that. And can you tell me, will there be any more to come? Will we be seeing you again in the Connors, do you think? Oh,
I hope so, my darling. I hope so. I mean, we certainly, it's a strange business. You just never know. So I never really, I never really count on anything until it's happening. But we have talked about it. There has been discussion about it. So I hope so. They're such wonderful, kind, funny, smart, compassionate people that I would just like to go hang out with them, to be honest. I told them that. I said, I'll just come bring you coffee. Like, I'm good with that. I don't care.
I love that. And I hope we get to see you a lot more on the show. I've always loved it. And I was so thrilled when I heard that you were joining the cast.
I appreciate that, love. It's a great time. I'm very grateful.
And so you also recently appeared in the Netflix documentary Disclosure, which is about trans representation in the media. You appeared in a lot of shows in the early 2000s where you were in hospital a lot in different storylines. Do you think the representation is improving now?
Yes? Question mark? I mean, I feel like, yeah, it's better. Certainly, it's better. We have a long way to go. You know how you can always tell, and there go my glasses again. You know how you can always tell, this is what I always tell people, because people are like, isn't it better? And I'm like, yes, but let's do this together. Let's do this little exercise. Let's think of how many shows there are on the television machine and the space machines that star a white, cisgender, heteronormative male or female. How many of those? A lot. More than 10, probably.
Right.
Now let's think how many shows on the television machine and space machine star a trans female, male, or non-binary human. Star. So that's how far we have to go.
Exactly.
So that's what I always tell people.
And the fact that I could probably name all of them highlights the problem.
Correct.
Or just how much I want them.
Right. We have an enormous amount of space to cover, because what should be happening is the white cisgender men and women need to have far less representation in the arts than every other marginalized person. And now I'm talking about African-American women, African-American men, African-American gay women and men, and transgender and other humans, Asian Americans, handy-capable Americans. I'm talking about everyone except those people. Those people should have 5 or 6 shows. That's where we need to get to.
Hopefully one day we will.
I think we will. I think we will, because the new generation that's coming up in Hollywood is, they're done with all of that. They don't want to tell those stories because they're not those people. This is what kills me. The reflection of art right now is not the reflection of the human experience in this country. The people who saved us, literally saved us from this last nightmarish election, were African-American women in the South. They saved us. How are they represented in art, period? Even in film, they're not. They're not. Viola Davis says, there's this great interview with her, and the woman is talking to her about her career, and she's saying, your career is so varied and so amazing and so fabulous and all blah blah. And Viola Davis goes, yeah, it's good, I'm grateful, yeah. And the interviewer goes, well, you don't sound like you're very great. She said, you know what, when I start getting offered the films that Meryl Streep is offered, then I'll be a little bit more grateful. And she's right. She should be. She should be. She should be offered the exact same films Meryl Streep is offered, but she's not, because she's a Black woman, period. So we got a long way to go.
We really have. Now, I ask every guest on my show this question. Can you tell me a fun fact about you? Something we may not know. It could be a hobby, a party trick, something like that.
A fun fact. Something we don't, oh my gosh, there's so much that I talk about. I don't know if there's anything that anybody doesn't know. Is there anything that anybody doesn't know? Well, I don't know if this is fun, but it may be something that a lot of people don't know. I actually have a terrible fear of crowds, which is why I actually do. People think that I live this really glamorous, big life with a lot of people, and that's actually not true at all. In fact, the complete opposite is true. I actually married someone who's much more gregarious than I am. I'm outgoing and aggressive and tenacious, but that's all ego. It's not right. I mean, that's not my nature, right? That's all like, I gotta get out there and be a big jerk so I can make money. But my wife is more like, we need to help humanity and we need to help people. And not that I don't think that's true, but it scares me. So I think people would be very surprised to know that I never go to parties, ever. I never go to those Hollywood things. Red carpets terrify me. I run through it. If you see some of the pictures of me at red carpets, I'm like this. Like, that's my smile. Everybody else is, and I'm just terrified. I'm like on my way to the bathroom. I'm like, I gotta bye. Like, I'm trying to get the hell out of there. So I think people would be surprised to know I'd rather stay home.
Now, you played Judge Martha Wallace in Goliath with Billy Bob Thornton, but my question to you is this. If you could be the judge of any case in history, which one would you like to be the judge of?
What good questions. If I could be the judge for any case in history, well, I think the first thing that came to me was I think I'd like to be the judge of what free speech is. I think I'd like to figure out what is the difference between free speech and hate speech. I think I'd like to, because I would like to hear both sides. I don't know that I'd like to be the decision maker, but I certainly would like to be in the room where I could hear both sides, because I know what I believe that is a very clear line. But I'd like to hear what the other side has to say. Very rarely do we listen to those people who say, that's not hate speech, that's free speech. I'd like to hear the reasoning behind that. I think that would be interesting.
You starred in loads of other shows over the years, ER, Grey's Anatomy, How to Get Away with Murder, Diary of a Future President. Are there any shows that you'd love to be a part of?
Star Trek. Star Trek. Get me on Star Trek. For the love of God, I've been saying this for 10 years. Star Trek. How much louder do I have to be? Star Trek! Star Trek. I want to be on Star Trek. I deserve to be on Star. I'm made for Star Trek. I am Star Trek.
You are what I think of when I think of Star Trek. So the fact that you're not in Star Trek is offensive to me.
Thank you. I'm offended. I'm offended now. I've been offended for years. I'm gonna stay offended until somebody puts me on Star Trek.
Can you tell me what you're working on next? I understand you're still teaching. Is there any projects coming up that we can be looking forward to?
Yes, but I don't think I can talk about them. Oh, I can talk about one of them. One of them is a show called Never Have I Ever. This written by Mindy Kaling.
Love her.
Yeah, she's terrific. She actually wrote a role for me in her show called Never Have I Ever. It's terrific. I think it's semi-autobiographical about her in high school. It's just wonderful. And I play the guidance counselor who's none too happy about being the guidance counselor and yet still does her job.
Oh, are we back?
What happened? Where'd she go?
I tried throwing water at it. I tried jamming cutlery in it. Nothing fixed it.
Cutlery. I need a film of you doing that.
I did have one, but I did the same to the camera and it's also doesn't work now.
Yeah, it doesn't work that way. No.
So I got everything up to, hi, my name's Alexandra Billings. No, I'm joking.
Yes. No. Could we just do it again, please? Good rehearsal, Alex. Yeah. Great rehearsal. Now, go.
Back to one.
There's more than one?
I don't know what that means, but.
Oh my God.
I think in England, that's just how we refer to ourselves. We just say one, so just back to one. Yeah.
That's right, just back to one, back to me.
Also, by the way, you are on the TikTok.
I'm on the TikTok. I'm obsessed with the TikTok. I can't stay off the TikTok because I've been lip syncing ever since I was a little kid. I mean, I've been lip syncing for how long? I'm 102, so for 100 years.
So
literally. Yeah, see? You know what I'm saying then? And I love the fact that you can lip sync now. You can lip sync, put it on a thing, press the hoo-ha, and everybody in the world, literally, everybody in the world can see it. That's crazy. Before it was just, me and my cat. That's not as exciting, I don't think.
Is there going to be any more Katie's Corner? I love it.
We've been trying to figure out how to do it on the Zoom. And I think what I'm going to do, yes, in answer to your question, the short answer is yes, because Katie's Corner is, and what's funny, here's what's really funny and tragic, is that I'm now coming closer to the age that I actually am doing her. Like before I was, far too young to be doing her so old. Now we're almost the same age. So now I don't have to act. That's tragic. But yeah, it's coming back and we're going to figure out how to do it on the Zoom. I already talked to my director about it. So it's in the planning stages.
My next thing I want to say isn't a question, but I just want to thank you for using your voice and for your activism, talking about transitioning and experiencing homelessness and overcoming addiction and being diagnosed with AIDS in the 1980s and everything else you've been through. Every time you're on the screen, I have to listen to you. And, you know, when you do your Facebook Live videos, I've listened to them till like 5, 6 in the morning because you're such a wealth of information and you're so funny and compassionate and just amazing in every way. So I just want to thank you for that.
I'm most appreciative, my friend. And I receive that and I thank you for it. I really do. That means a lot to me.
My final question is, have you got any messages for people watching the Sarah O'Connell Show and your fans around the world?
I'm so happy we did this. It just makes me really happy. And I just really want to thank you, my friend, for inviting me here and allowing me to share this space with you. I'm most appreciative. And I was really, really excited to get to see your beautiful face and just to hang out with you. And everyone who's listening, look, the thing is that, you know, we're all in this thing together, which means that we all have to be in this thing together. We can't just say that we're all in this thing together. Otherwise, we're just all in this thing. So we've got to approach each other with a little bit of kindness, forgiveness, especially now. It's such a strange time right now. It's probably, I think this isn't too dramatic to say, probably one of the strangest times in human history. Well, for a very long time for us to remember anyway. So no matter what happens, I think all of us need to approach each other with a modicum of empathy, whether you agree with these people who are saying whatever they're saying or you don't. So I'm just happy, Sarah, that you've created a space like this. That says everything. And if we don't have hope, we have nothing.
Alexandra Billings, I think the world of you. Thank you so much for coming on my show today.
You're very welcome, my friend. You're very welcome.
Thank you to everybody watching at home. Be sure to share, subscribe, give this video a big thumbs up and leave lots of lovely comments. I'll see you all again soon for another episode of the Sarah O'Connell Show. Bye.
Thank you, my friend. I appreciate it.